12,000 in savings, gone in a puff of salty fog. That's what hit me like a rogue wave when I crested the bluff and saw her standing there on my lighthouse steps, clipboard in hand, flanked by two burly guys in ill-fitting blazers that screamed "Rent a cop." The bell was tolling low in the distance, that mournful hum I'd grown up with, mixing with the crash of Atlantic swells against the rocks below. But there she was, Victoria Hargrove, blonde bob frozen in place like she'd just stepped off a yacht, barking orders into a megaphone. "This structure is in violation of heritage codes. Immediate shutdown or we'll seal it off." Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries like laughter at my expense. I killed the engine of my old Ford pickup, the one with the faded Coast Guard sticker on the bumper, and stepped out into the brine-soaked air that always tasted like regret and redemption. What would you do if some pint-sized tyrant showed up on your doorstep, claiming your family's legacy was her personal playground? Drop a comment with where you're watching from: coastal Maine, maybe, or wherever the waves crash hardest, because this nightmare with fake badges and forged fines gets saltier before it washes clean. Let me back up, because this isn't just about a lighthouse. It's about the kind of fight that starts with a whisper of wind off the bay and ends with the whole damn village holding its breath. My name's Elias Thorne, 55 now, retired Coast Guard after 32 years pulling fishermen out of the drink when the nor'easters turned the sea to teeth. Grew up in this speck on the map called Harbor's End, Maine, a cluster of weathered clapboard houses hugging the cliffs like they were afraid to let go. Population 1,200 on a good day, half that in winter when the tourists flee and the lobster traps swing empty. My folks ran the Thorne Light Inn back in the 70s, a squat granite tower with guest rooms carved into the base, foghorn moaning like a lovesick whale. Dad was the keeper. Mom baked those blueberry scones that could make a man forget his sins. I left at 18 for the service, chasing horizons, but the sea always drags you back. 10 years ago, Sarah, my Sarah, the one who laughed like breaking waves, got diagnosed with that quiet thief of a cancer. She fought like hell, but it took the inn with her. Medical bills piled up faster than snowdrifts, and by the end, we sold off the guest cottages to keep the light standing. Sarah grabbed my hand one last night, her skin cool as sea glass, and whispered, "Elias, light it up again. For us. Don't let the dark win." I buried her ashes in the garden, under the wild roses that bloom pink against the gray stone, and promised I'd fix it. Every cent from my pension, every odd job hauling crab pots for the locals, went into the coffee can on the mantel. Or the bank app, these days. Last spring, I finally had enough, 12,000 for permits, a new roof, and wiring that wouldn't spark like the 4th of July. Closed on the Remnants Tower, keeper's quarters, half-acre bluff with a local lawyer who said the title was cleaner than a scoured deck. The plan: turn it back into an inn. 6 rooms, fresh paint smelling like hope, guests waking to the sun gilding the bay. A legacy reborn, or so I thought. That's when Victoria Hargrove sailed into my life like a clipper ship on a collision course. Early 50s, all sharp angles and designer scarves that fluttered like surrender flags in the wind. She'd washed up in Harbor's End 5 years back, married to some Boston hedge fund ghost who funded her passions from afar. Victoria fancied herself the guardian of our coastal soul, president of the Coastal Heritage Alliance, a group she'd cobbled together from book club gossips and summer people with too much time. Her office was a converted boathouse downtown, walls papered in sepia photos of shipwrecks, desk piled with artifacts that looked suspiciously like thrift store finds. Arrogant honey, she made seagulls look humble. Entitled to her marrow, the kind who tips in compliments and expects the world to curtsy. Her motivation power wrapped in plaid. Rumor had it she eyed my lighthouse for her next project, a boutique spa retreat, all crystal therapies and 300 facials, with her name etched on the plaque. My family's sweat equity just an inconvenient barnacle. It started small, that first absurd confrontation I mentioned. I'd been up since dawn, hammer in hand, nailing fresh cedar shakes to the widow's walk, the rhythmic thunk-thunk echoing over the serve. Sweat soaked my flannel, mixing with the tang of pine sap and ozone from an incoming squall. The bay stretched out like hammered silver, lobster boys bobbing red and yellow, gulls diving for scraps. I was in my element, whistling an old shanty about lost loves and found shores, when her SUV crunched up the gravel path, tires spitting pebbles like accusations. Out she stepped, megaphone blaring, those two goons trailing like poorly trained seals. "Mr. Thorne. Cease all work immediately. Your renovations violate Section 47 of the Heritage Act, unauthorized alterations to a protected structure." I wiped sawdust from my eyes, heart pounding not from fear but from the sheer gall. "Ma'am, this is my property. Permits filed, inspections passed. Who's the alliance?" She thrust the clipboard like a sword. "We are the stewards of Harbor's End's history. Your rustic efforts threaten the aesthetic integrity. Fines start at 5,000. Pay up or we'll board it shut." The wind whipped her scarf across her face, she batted it away like a fly. I laughed, couldn't help it, because her goons were locals I'd fished with, looking sheepish in those blazers. "Victoria, right, let's talk this out over chowder at the wharf," she sneered, all porcelain teeth. "This is official. Ignore us at your peril." They left a laminated notice taped to my door, fluttering like a bad omen. That night, alone with the fog rolling in thick as grief, I poured a tumbler of single malt, Sarah's favorite, and wondered if this was the sea's way of testing me again. The stakes they cut deep as a nor'easter's chill. That lighthouse wasn't just bricks and beam, it was Sarah's laugh echoing in the spiral stairs, my boy's childhood forts in the beam room, the legacy Dad died defending from erosion. My son, Finn 28, a welder in Portland, kept texting, "Dad, sell it. Start fresh." But selling meant letting Victoria win, letting her turn our light into some Instagram trap for the elite. And me, I'd poured my pension into it, 12,000 down, another 20,000 in sweat. Lose it, and I'm couch surfing with Finn, a ghost in my own story. Victoria's arrogance fueled her. She thrived on the quiver in folks' voices when she flashed that fake badge, gold-plated, probably from a catalog. "I'm preserving our heritage," she'd coo at village meetings, eyes gleaming like polished abalone. But whispers in the bait shop said different. She'd strong-armed a widow out of her cottage last year, fining her into foreclosure for unapproved shutters. Entitlement like hers doesn't negotiate, it engulfs. Escalation hit like high tide, relentless and foaming. Week 1, anonymous complaints flooded the town hall. My noise pollution from hammering, environmental hazard from sawdust washing into the bay. Victoria's fingerprints everywhere. She'd rallied her alliance busybodies at the library tea, painting me as a Yankee destroyer, ironic, since we're all Yankees here. Fines arrived by certified mail, 2,000 for structural deviance, another 1,500 for aesthetic blight. I countered with my toolbox. Years in the guard taught me paperwork's just another knot to untie. Dug out my permits, snapped photos of every shingle, emailed the selectmen with timestamps. See all above board. But she escalated, posted no trespassing signs on my bluff claiming alliance jurisdiction. Drove by one dawn, coffee in hand, to find her goons stringing yellow tape like crime scene ribbon. The tape snapped under my truck tires with a satisfying rip, but not before she called the sheriff. Deputy Lou Old Salt Iota Beer showed up, Scratching his beard. Elias, this is civil. Can't evict em till court. Civil. This was my dawn patrol interrupted by a woman who smelled like Chanel and spite. Month 2, she went nuclear with community manipulation. Village Facebook group Harbors End Holler lit up with her posts, save our lighthouse from commercial greed. Doctored photos of my site, scaffolds looking like a demolition derby. Comments poured in, poor Victoria, fighting the good fight. Thorns turning it into a frat house. I felt the isolation creep, like fog off the water. Neighbors I'd waved to at the co-op now averting eyes. But resilience, that's my middle name. I leaned on my skills, started a counter log on my phone, every call, every fine, time-stamped with GPS pins. Humor helped nailed a sign to my fence, Alliance approved, one pirate at a time. Locals chuckled, one even slipped me a coffee with a wink. Tension peaked that stormy Friday, power flickered as I wired the guest lamps, thunder rumbling like artillery. Knock at the door. Victoria, soaked, eyes wild. Your lights are a hazard. Fire risk in Heritage Wood. She shoved a cease order, paper curling in the damp. I invited her in. Big mistake. She stormed the parlor, clipboard flying, this chandelier non-compliant. Sarcasm bubbled, Victoria, it's been glowing since Eisenhower. Want tea? She huffed out, but not before snapping pics for her smear campaign. Irony, her heels skidded on the wet path, landing her ass in a puddle. Posted about it as sabotage. I laughed till my ribs hurt, but sleep elusive as fair weather. Desperation showed in her cracks. By month 3, fines tallied 15,000 more than I'd invested. She cornered me at the annual clam festival, lobster roll in hand, grease dripping like her facade. Settle, Elias. Sell to the Alliance for 50,000. Will preserve.